It is common to see lifters drink a protein shake immediately after finishing their workout. However, is this really necessary to maximize muscle growth? In this video, we will cover if lifters need a post-workout protein shake to maximize muscle growth. First, let's cover what exactly a protein shake is and what it consists of. A protein shake is usually just a liquid drink with a high amount of protein in it. Most commonly, this would be 1 to 2 scoops or around 30 to 60 grams of some sort of protein powder, usually whey protein. This would provide anywhere between 20 to 50 grams of dietary protein because protein powders are not made up of 100% protein, they are usually only around 60 to 80% of actual protein content. These powders are usually mixed with water so they can be easily ingested, but they can also be mixed with milk or other liquids which can add more protein and other nutrients to the shake. However, for this video, let's just keep it simple and assume that a protein shake is just a basic 1 to 2 scoops of whey isolate or any other form of high concentration protein powder mixed with plain water. This then leads us onto another important point that needs to be clarified for this video. What is protein? Protein, as in dietary protein, not protein powder, is simply a macronutrient, with the other two being carbohydrate and fat. Macronutrients make up our total daily calorie intake and are essentially our energy fuel sources for movement and exercise. Each macronutrient is digested, transported, used for energy, and stored in slightly different ways, but they are all essentially just forms of energy. The physiological details of these processes aren't important for this video, but it should just be understood that protein is simply a macronutrient that we intake through food and drink. So this means that protein supplements aren't the only form of protein we ingest. We actually consume some amount of protein in almost all foods we eat, with some foods having more or less protein than others. For example, 100 grams of white bread has around 9 grams of protein, 49 grams of carbohydrate, and 3 grams of fat, while 100 grams of chicken breast has around 25 grams of protein, no carbohydrates, and around 3 grams of fat too. So quite clearly, different foods can have more or less protein as well as other macronutrients too. So the key point to understand here is that protein should be thought of as a dietary macronutrient, not only as a supplement. There are many other ways that we can consume protein, not just through protein shakes. So why is it that trainees consume a protein shake immediately after a workout? Well, there are many claims that people will make to justify this, but the most common claim goes something like this. Essentially, the theory is that our muscles are damaged during our workouts, and we need to start to repair the tissues immediately after we finish training. And if we don't consume some protein straight away, we are just spending more time in a catabolic or muscle wasting state. However, if we consume a protein feeding, we immediately reverse this catabolic state into an anabolic or muscle building state, because we now have nutrients to start the repair process. I have also heard claims about protein shakes causing favorable anabolic hormone changes and muscles being ultra sensitive to protein absorption after a workout. And I'm sure there are many more claims out there supporting the ingestion of a post-workout protein shake. Throughout the rest of this video, we will explore if these claims do have some legitimacy or if they are completely incorrect. To understand if post-workout protein shakes are required to maximize muscle growth, we need to explore how protein as a macronutrient influences muscle growth in the first place, since protein shakes are basically just isolated dietary protein. So we will look at how total daily protein intake influences hypertrophy, the effects of protein frequency, the effects of protein timing, and the influence of protein quality. First and most importantly, let's look at the effects of total daily protein intake on muscle growth. This refers to the total amount of dietary protein we consume throughout the entire day from all sources. This includes protein from regular food and drink, and also protein from supplements like shakes or bars. The important thing to realize here is that our total daily protein intake is the most important factor regarding protein for muscle growth. While other protein-related variables can have an influence on hypertrophy outcomes, it is our total daily intake from all sources which has the biggest influence. So the question is, how much protein should we consume per day to maximize muscle growth? Well, according to this meta-analysis, it seems that the more protein we consume per day, the better for muscle growth. However, more protein also seems to be less additionally effective beyond a certain point. Once we are consuming around 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram per day, more protein than this may be beneficial, but it probably doesn't have much additional benefit. So as a general recommendation, trainees should probably aim to consume at least 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram per day of protein to be safe. And remember, this accounts for all forms of protein in the diet, not just supplementation. So now that we understand how much total daily protein we should consume per day, the next factor to discuss is protein frequency. This refers to how many protein feedings per day we distribute this total daily allowance. For example, let's say a trainee weighs 80 kilos and aims to consume around 1.75 grams per kilogram per day of protein, which equates to 140 grams total. This could be achieved by consuming 2 meals with 70 grams of protein each, 3 meals with 47 grams of protein, 4 meals with 35 grams each, and so on. So how should our total daily protein be distributed? Is a higher frequency better, or does it not make a difference when total daily protein intake is the same? Well, traditionally it was believed that there was a maximum amount of protein that could be absorbed within a single meal, which was thought to be somewhere around 20 to 30 grams. And consuming more protein than this in a single meal would be thought of as wasted protein that had no additional benefit for muscle growth. Therefore, spreading your protein intake across 4, 5, or even 6 meals per day was recommended, with the rationale that this would maximize muscle protein synthesis more frequently throughout the day. However, this is heavily based on indirect models rather than direct outcomes of muscle growth. Rather, the direct evidence suggests that this is probably not true, at least not to such an extreme extent. For example, this study explored the effects of distributing the same total daily protein intake across 4 versus 6 feedings per day in rugby players who were performing regular weight training. And as we can see, the difference in protein frequency didn't really have any effect on muscle growth, with both groups achieving great results. So without going into too much detail about protein frequency, I generally recommend splitting your total daily intake across a minimum of 3 meals per day. Consuming more frequent meals than this won't have any negative consequences, but it probably won't have any significant benefits either. Consuming all your protein in 1 to 2 meals per day could potentially result in slightly inferior results, but we don't really have any good evidence looking at this in combination with resistance training. Next, let's discuss protein timing. This refers to when throughout the day we consume our protein feedings, particularly in relation to our workouts. Like we mentioned, it is generally advised that lifters should consume a protein shake immediately after a workout. However, does the timing of this actually matter? Well, it probably does matter to some extent, although it may not be as important as we once thought. This was demonstrated in this study, which had trainees consume a protein shake either before or after their workout. It was found that whether the protein shake was consumed before or after workouts, both groups saw similar muscle growth after 10 weeks of training, with no significant differences between them. This study suggests that there doesn't really seem to be a strict anabolic window where protein must be consumed within. Rather, we probably just want to make sure that there is sufficient amino acid availability in the bloodstream around our workout time, and throughout the entire day for that matter. This is because the muscle growth process is a multi-day function, not something that just occurs within an hour or so. And lastly, let's discuss protein quality. This refers to the amino acid profile of the protein sources we consume. We could get into a whole lot of detail with this discussion, but it isn't really needed for this video, so we will just touch on the basics here. Essentially, each protein source consists of a particular combination of amino acids, with some potentially being more anabolic than others. More specifically, it is the essential amino acids which have been proposed to be the most important for muscle building, since they aren't able to be synthesized in the body naturally, like the other non-essential amino acids can be. So protein sources with a higher concentration of essential amino acids are generally thought of as higher quality, and sources with a lower concentration of essential amino acids are thought to be of lower quality. This is because research has in fact shown that higher quality protein sources do tend to result in greater spikes in muscle protein synthesis than lower quality sources. We generally find that higher quality protein sources, usually animal or dairy-based proteins, result in a larger muscle protein synthesis response, while lower quality protein sources, usually plant-based proteins, result in a smaller muscle protein synthesis spike. So the assumption here is that higher quality proteins are superior for muscle growth. While this is a legitimate and logical assumption, this is ultimately mechanistic evidence, not direct evidence. When we look at studies measuring actual muscle growth from different protein sources, the differences aren't all that significant. For example, this study explored the effects of resistance training on muscle growth in vegan versus non-vegan trainees. Both groups were provided with 1.6 grams per kilogram per day of protein coming from both their regular diet and additional soy or whey protein supplements for the vegan or non-vegan groups respectively. And as we can see, there were no differences in muscle growth between either group after a 12-week training program. So now that we understand the fundamentals of how protein influences muscle growth, let's now circle back to post-workout protein shakes. Based on this information, let's now discuss how beneficial a post-workout shake can be. First and foremost, a protein shake can help contribute to our total daily protein intake. Like we have established, our total daily protein intake is more important than any of the other factors. This is probably the biggest benefit of consuming a protein shake. It provides a good serving of protein to boost our total daily intake. So for trainees who struggle to get enough protein in their regular diet, a protein shake can assist them. That being said, trainees can also get all of their protein through food alone. A shake isn't mandatory to achieve this. In terms of protein frequency, a post-workout shake may be one of our main protein servings throughout the day. Like we mentioned, we probably want at least 3 protein feedings throughout the day, and a protein shake can certainly contribute as one of them. That being said, a protein shake isn't mandatory for this. Regular high protein food can also achieve this. Furthermore, we don't need to consume 6 protein servings throughout the day, so don't feel like you need to specifically consume a protein shake every couple of hours. For protein timing, we probably want to have a decent supply of amino acids in the bloodstream around our workout, but a strict 60-minute anabolic window certainly doesn't exist. So we don't need to consume a protein shake immediately after a workout, but having a protein serving a few hours before and after a resistance training session is probably a good idea. This can be achieved by simply carrying a scoop of protein in a shaker around in your bag so that you have a readily available serving at your disposal. But once again, there is probably nothing inherently special about it. This can also be achieved by eating a high protein meal. And lastly, let's discuss protein quality. While whey protein is a very high quality protein source, meaning it has a high concentration of essential amino acids, it probably doesn't have much of an impact on actual muscle growth when considering the diet as a whole. There could hypothetically be a slightly superior effect of consuming more high quality protein sources on muscle growth over multiple years, but it would probably be minimal, assuming total daily intake is equated. That being said, you will likely be getting plenty of high quality protein sources in regular food throughout the rest of the day anyway, so it is certainly not mandatory to achieve this via a post-workout whey protein shake. So we have now discussed how a post-workout protein shake could potentially be beneficial for muscle growth and how it may not be as beneficial as we once thought. And the reality is that the same outcomes can likely be achieved with regular food intake alone. There doesn't seem to be anything inherently special about a post-workout shake. However, I do believe there is one major benefit of a post-workout shake, or for any other protein supplement for that matter, and that is convenience. Most people are fairly busy with their everyday lives and may not have the time or energy to always be preparing multiple high protein meals each day, which are easily able to be packed and transported. This is where a protein shake comes in handy. You can easily put 1 to 2 scoops of protein powder in a shaker and take it with you wherever you go. Then when you want to consume it, just add water and you have a solid protein serving. This could be beneficial for trainees who need to go to work or school after lifting and don't have time to go home and prepare a high protein meal. Furthermore, protein shakes are a good way of boosting your total daily protein intake during a calorie deficit. Because protein powders are mostly just protein with little additional macronutrients, they are generally much lower in calories compared with a traditional meal, so trainees can get more protein without a large amount of additional calories. So, do you need to consume a post-workout protein shake to make great gains in the gym? The answer is no, it is not absolutely mandatory to do so. Instead, you could just focus on getting enough total protein across 3 or more meals per day via regular food and drink that you enjoy, and just make sure that you have one of these servings a few hours before and after your training sessions. Can a post-workout protein shake be beneficial for muscle growth? Yes, it definitely can be for some people or in certain circumstances. The main benefit is that it can be highly practical. It can help contribute to our total daily protein intake and provide a protein serving at a specific time of the day. The magnitude of these practical benefits will depend on your specific lifestyle, but for many people, it can certainly be a useful nutritional strategy. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Check out flowhighperformance.com for online coaching, training templates, ebooks, and more.